All right, this is where we left off last time. We were talking about arrays. I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of this out and just leave my event begin play here. Because what I'd like to do is, in this section moving forward, is I'd like to talk about branching. Now, a lot of times people will say, any curly-based language will have three main components to just keep in the back of your head when you're scripting or you're programming. And that's sequencing, branching, and looping. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in that order, but what that means is there's a sequence behind things run, right? Like we had one node that runs to the other. We can read the code. It goes in a specific order. Even if it jumps around a little bit, we could follow it. And then branching is really just giving them the option to do something if something is true or false. So for example, if I hold B and I left click, it opens the branch node. You can also right click and just type branch. And you can see it's under this section called flow control. And it has a condition, right? So for example, if we make a new Boolean variable here and we call has health, right? So we write the name in here, we name this has health, and we drag this out and we wire this in, we get has health, and we wire this, our execution node in here. And then we could just, again, do a print statement here. And then we could do I'll just do copy paste this, and we'll wire this to true or false. Okay, so our has health, um, if I compile and save this, you'll see it has a check mark. So right now it's set to false. If I check this on, it's set to true. So in theory, right, not in theory, but in practice, because this is false here, right, this should print no health. And then this could print health, right? And we compile and save this. And if I go to my BP level here, you could see I have this has health here. If I go back inside here, it's called has health. And we can, turn on instance editable, compile and save it so it's access, make sure it's access. So right now if I press play, it says no health. And then if I check this on, and I press play, it says health, right? And the thing behind this is, let me see, let's open our level blueprint really quick. And I'll break this for a second and compile and save this. And that way when we press play now, we'll just have the one. So here's health. And then again, if we uncheck this, no health. And it's important to note that, again, we have a sequence here, right? So we're begin play, we have a branch, true or false, these happen. You could also stack your branches, right? So I could actually select this and do copy and paste, and I could have the branch run into a separate branch to check something else, right? So for example, like if it's true, let's delete this out. If it's true that we have health, we could check, on a different condition, right? Where it's like, let's say this is like the player has health, but it's low energy. And did I put low energy? Yeah, low energy, sorry. Low energy, there we go. So there's low energy. So if I drag this out and I get low energy and I plug this in there, if it's true the player has low energy, then it's find health. Find health. And then if it's false that it doesn't have energy, we'll just say full health. Okay, so let's leave this as false. Let's compile and save this. We'll leave this as false. And then we'll just say the player has health. We'll check that on as true. So we'll compile and save that. And then when we go inside here, it says you have full health, right? And we could also put delays in here, right? Like we could have it print. Oh, you know what? We should have had it go into a print. Okay, let's try that here. We have running like that. There we go. So if we have health, it'll say you have health. And then find health or full health. So compile and save this, and we press play. Full health, you have health. So you could see there's a sequence there, right? Like it played the first one, then it spit the other one out. And again, if it's going too fast for you, you can always just throw a delay node in here, right? So just delay, and we could say whatever, 1 second. You have health, and then full health. All right, so we have this where we talked about branching. But we can also do something where we say we don't want to just do a delay here, but we want to do a sequence, right? A sequence of these branches in specific order, right? So you can right click in here and type sequence, and you could see that sequence is here and it's under flow control. Notice that both branching and sequencing is on flow control. So if I wire this into here, and I'll just copy this just to kind of show you a rough example, and then paste it again. And then I'll name this process 01. And then I'll do process 02. So if I compile and save this, and I press play, you can see process 01, process 02. So it has a specific sequence that it can run through. And let me move this up for a second. And you can also add extra sequences. And then don't forget, like outside of the delay node I was showing you earlier, you also have a duration in here, right? So this is for 2 seconds and this is for 2 seconds, right? So this is how long you want it to display on the screen. Now, we talked a little about branching, and remember I said at the top of this video, there's 3 parts to it. There's sequence, branching, and looping, right? So how do we loop something? Well, let's say I want this string to print for a certain period of time, right? Or I want to check something. I want to constantly check health, or I want to spawn so many objects into a scene or something. Well, that's where we can use something called a for loop. And we'll go over to a while loop in a moment, but here's our for loop. So there's a for each loop, and then there's a for loop, which is this one here. And so what I can do is I could say the first index is 0, and the last index is essentially whatever we want, right? And then this is the looping the body. So let's go ahead and just, instead of wiring it through this sequence, I'll just run it right through process 1. And you'll see here that, let me break this. It's holding Alt and clicking on that. So the body, right now it says index 00, so it should only loop once. So let's go ahead and compile and save this and press play. You can see process 1. But if we want that process to run more than once, let's say 10 times, it'll actually run 11 times because our index starts at 0. So 0 is counted, and then it counts up to 10. So 0, so this, you imagine this is the first index, which is 1 index, and this is our last index. So it'll run about 11 times. So if we compile and save that and we press play, you can see it loop through 1, 2, 3. Well, we'll have to count through that later with a longer delay. Let's say duration 10 seconds. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you can see it looped through essentially 11 times. Right. Something else I'd like to do is just point out that there's this completed execution pin. So if I copy and paste this, and I just kind of put it here, and I do completed, you can say, loop done. And let's make this duration 1 again. So compile and save that, and then just press play, and you can see it loop through, and then hit loop done. So you can have things happen after a loop is finished, where you're like, you want one final thing to happen when it's completed. And again, a lot of this stuff is just introduction to how things work. As we go to build our game, we'll be practicing or using a lot of the same stuff I'm showing you. All right, next let's take a look at another loop type, and it's called a while loop. So I'm going to just right click here, type in while, and it's under flow control, and I'm going to wire this into this. Now this continuously runs as long as this condition is true, right? So if I grab my loop body here and I plug this in here, and then my completed here, so loop done and process, and let's go ahead and delete this since we've already kind of covered it. If this condition is false, it'll go to completed, right? But if this condition is true, it'll just keep looping infinitely. And what will happen is if I press play now, I'll get an error from Unreal because there is no condition that I'm checking. See, it says infinite loop detected. So it crashed essentially, like not really Unreal, but it caught it, it's smart. It's like, wait a second, you did some bad programming here. You can't just leave an infinite loop forever. So you need to check some sort of condition, like while player health is equal to 100, so let's do that. So here's let's see, we have an integer here called um, well, we have this health variable here. Let's change that back to a regular variable, single variable. And I'm just going to drop this in here. I'm going to get health. And um, let's get rid of these. There we go. Let's compile this and save this. And then let's make our health 100. So here's health equals 100. And while health is not equal to, I don't know, let's make a new integer and we'll call this no health. So this is equal to no health. And actually, we could have just, I think if we just do not equal to, let's see, we'll do the exclamation point, not equals. We could do 0 here. So while health is not equal to 0, I don't think we need to make another variable. This condition is going to be true. And so if I run this right now, because health is not equal to 0, this condition is true. Well, let's see what happens. So I'm going to compile and save this. And we get another infinite loop because health is not equal to 0. So how do I get health back to 0 so that it runs to this process or goes to loop done? Well, what I want to do is I want to decrement my health. So when it goes to 100, it goes down by 1. So I'm just going to drag this out. I'm going to type in DEC, I guess R, and then I want to grab my decrement integer, not float. And then what I want to do is just feed in whatever variable I want to decrement, which is my health here. So I can just copy this and then paste it in here and just wire this in. So what'll happen now, from 100, it's just going to decrement it by 1 as it runs through this loop. And then let's go ahead and just print this out. And then we'll wire this into here and see what value comes out of here. You can see it goes boom all the way to 0 and it says loop done. Let me actually make this like 10 seconds or something so that it stays on a little bit longer. So you can see it goes backwards because remember it's popping them in and then it hits loop done at 0. So this is how we could use while loops, and then you have to think about the logic behind it so that it doesn't, get into an infinite loop, which whether it's in C# or C++ or even Blueprints, is a reality. I even teach it when I'm teaching it the actual coding way. We sort of go about the exact same process. I think that's good for now. This video is getting a little long. What I'd like to do is continue talking about the different flow control structures, gates and multi-gates and all that good stuff in the future tutorials.